Hey, what is up, everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you here today. Second video of the day. This one is kind of like a continuation of the first video, talking about Daniel Bryan signing with WWE, looking like he's going to be joining the company and making some sort of a big debut at the New York shows that AEW is going to be running. That's kind of like they're already out there doing the stadium shows for Dynamite and things like that, but I think to them going to New York is kind of like the kickoff of like, hey, this is really, going back down again. Like the wrestling is taking over the country. We're no longer just being held down to Jacksonville. We're going to spread this thing. And they've probably become a bigger company in the last year that they've been down there. And now they're going to be able to take it on the road. And when you go out on the road, you get in front of more eyes that haven't been able to see the company and things like that. And they need ways to bring more fans in and signing new names that are out there. And probably easily the biggest free agent out there on the market that's maybe not named Brock Lesnar would have to be CM Punk. And the word out on the street today is that not only CM Punk and AEW are working out on a deal, but as of about noon today, it sounds like CM Punk is signed, sealed, and delivered as a member of AEW. I easily have been guilty of making this video 1,000 times. CM Punk returning to WWE when rumors kind of like were hot on the trails that it sounded like they were going to be working on something. And I know a lot of people thought that when CM Punk went back and did the Fox show talking about WWE when he was with Christian, Booker, Paige, I don't know, Michael Cole might have been on that show. I can easily tell you I never watched that show. I might have saw a clip here or there that Twitter put up or the Fox Twitter thing put up, but I never sat down and actually watched one of those shows with Punk on there. Some people actually thought that that meant Punk was using that as a springboard to come back and join the company. I'm not talking about anybody. I'm not pointing any fingers at anybody, but I am talking about Mike. Thought that was going to mean that he was going to wrestle again. And I kind of thought that CM Punk was done with wrestling. Never going to see it, never going to do it. Easily, a lot talking about like Stone Cold Steve Austin or Hulk Hogan. Every year the WrestleMania rumor comes out that, they're going to come back and do one more match. You say, well, this is the year he has to do it. Or, he's getting to that age that he's never going to do it again. I remember when we were kind of talking about WrestleMania 32, people thought that Stone Cold Steve Austin might come back and wrestle one more match. If he was going to wrestle a match, it had to be a match that was going to mean something. So he had to wrestle a guy like Brock Lesnar. He had to wrestle a guy like CM Punk. CM Punk wasn't out of the company. CM Punk had kind of put his foot down at WrestleMania 30 and walked out. But Stone Cold Steve Austin was kind of saying on his show, on his podcast at the time, it sucks that Punk walked out, but he walked out for the right reasons. And he was the guy that's still with WWE, still has to see Vince McMahon, still has to see Triple H. But he's kind of like, hey, I did the same thing 2002, probably the worst thing he ever did in his career. That he says that it, kind of set him back, but he felt like he had the rights to, be able to say like, hey, I'm the biggest star you have, and you're just saying like, hey, we're going to put you in a match with Brock Lesnar and you're going to lose on Monday Night Raw with no build. And he's like, hey, I have no problem losing to this guy, but we got to make some money off of it. We got to build it up. It just can't be a King of the Ring qualifying match. You're just not going to kill me off just to kill me off. You know what I mean? So, I think when Punk left, it meant something, and it kind of started something for WWE that it looked like, hey, you're not going to be able to push these guys around, but WWE wrestlers never were able to band together and actually sort of make it mean something. They all just stand in line, take what they're going to take, and make the money while they can, and when they get released, go out on the open market, and as of right now, the open market is probably more valuable than anything else, but, Punk joining Punk joining AEW, I think is big. But for me, when I sit back and look at this, I think easily, I love the Bucks. I love Jon Moxley. I love Hangman Page. I even love Chris Jericho. But Punk coming in is easily the number one star that they have. You can debate whether Daniel Bryan is a bigger star than Chris Jericho. You can debate where he goes. But I think Punk is the biggest star, is the most the most see star that they have. Any match that they put CM Punk in, I don't care if it's against Jericho for the 1000th time, if you put him up against Moxley, if you put him up against in the tag team match, any match that you put CM Punk in, the first time that he walks out on that stage, it is must-see television for any wrestling fan, easily out of the last 10 years. Any wrestling fan. If you want to pump a rating, you make sure people know when it's going to happen and people are going to be there. If you've watched wrestling one time since 2010, you're going to want to see when CM Punk walks out on that stage. My only worry is where they go from there. Do they just kind of rush him through, put the title on him as soon as they can to be the number one guy? And then once he becomes the number one guy, who does he really wrestle after that? Yeah, you can plug him in against a feud against Chris Jericho. They've had feuds where they've wrestled at WrestleMania 28. I think they wrestled at 2 different paybacks. Punk and Moxley might have mixed it up when he was in the Shield. But then again, he had the championship at the time, so I don't really think that they ever really had straight-up one-on-one matches, but maybe I just can't put them in the same place at the same time. I mean, anything other than that, I don't really know where Punk fits in. I know that they got the new show coming out. I think that's later than sooner, honestly, where they're going to have 2 shows and they'll have more things. Hopefully that doesn't mean that they have more problems. Because of the fact that, like, when SmackDown came out, it was more of a hurt to WWE. Yeah, they were making more money, but they had to sit down and they had to write more shows, more storylines, and that honestly hurt the product because you've only got so much time to get you to a pay-per-view when you have so many ideas, and when you're finally getting to a pay-per-view, you've already done everything that people want to see a match, but you have no storyline for the match because the storyline's been killed off just by oversaturating it week after week, trying to add more in to make people care about it. You've done so much that it hurts them. So I'm pumped for it if it's really going to happen. I think that it's easily the most must-see thing in wrestling in the last 10 years. My only worry is where they go from there once he gets there.